Welcome to part 2 of our layers video lesson, and here we're going to take two separate images and combine them together to create something new. We're going to start with part 2 border, and we're going to go to part 2 before, and we're going to mix them using layers and layer blends to create an attractive border around the edge of our frame. So let's start from scratch by going to our start image, which is called part 2 before, and what we're going to do is place the border on a separate layer. Before we do that, let me just go to Window Layers so we can see the Layers palette, and you can see we've got a locked background layer for our main image. So to place another image on top of that as a separate layer, go to File, go to Place, and then browse to the image you want. In this case it's called Part 2 Border. Let's click Place, and it will appear as a separate layer in the Layers palette. Now the cool thing about the place command is that Photoshop will resize the document on this new layer to fit the background layer. So if we had a larger part 2 border image, it would still scale down to fit our document. And you can see we have a diagonal line here. That's because we're still able to resize things if we want. It's referring to the original document there, and it's allowing us to resize it without any quality loss because it's still looking at the full size document that we got this layer from. So this is basically a smart object, and that's a very useful way of resizing things without losing any image quality. But once you've resized it and you're happy that it's fitting correctly, then pop down to the tick here, click it, and that will resize the document. You can always go and transform that and change it again. It's still linked to the original document because you can see a smart object icon. But to edit this shot now, what we're going to do is right click and choose Simplify Layer, because we don't need to resize that anymore. We don't need it to be a smart object. It's now a standard image layer, and we've also got one in the background there. Now what I want to do is remove the black to reveal the picture on the layer below, but keep the white intact. And as you can see, we've got quite a jaggy and stylized white background. So you could try using the magic wand by selecting this tool here. If you untick contiguous, it's going to find every single bit of black in the image. So if we click like so, you can see the marching ants have gone into these little areas at the top. You could then go to Edit and choose Cut to remove the selected area, like we did in part 1 where we selected the grey background and removed it. But this is a very jagged selection. It's not very good. There's still little bits of black maybe clinging to the edge of some of these white pixels. So that's not the best technique in this particular image. What we're going to do is something more sophisticated by using a layer blends. So let me undo that cut, and let's Control D to deselect that particular black section of the image, and instead we're going to go over to here and change the blending mode of the top layer. So click to make sure you've selected it, and then try something else like darken, and you can see there that the white has disappeared now, but the black's still solid. So if we change that again to something like lighten, you can now see the black disappears and we've got our white pixel still visible, and that's a great way to create a border. There's other subtle blending modes as well, like screen, which will give us even better results. Watch these subtle areas here when I go to screen. Click. That's much better. So we've now got a nicer and smoother change there, and we've got no traces of black, but we've got all of the white pixels visible, and that's a great way to hide the black bits of the image but preserve the white bits and create a border. And here's a quick tip for you. If you click on the blending mode to select it, you can then use the up arrows to change the blending mode, or the down arrows, and you can experiment with different results to see different creative techniques. So it's a quick way of experimenting using the arrow key. I'm going to go back up to screen anyway. This doesn't work in the Mac version of Photoshop Elements, unfortunately. You have to change things manually. So that's how you place and resize two separate images together in the same document, and you can also use blending modes to combine different parts of the layers together to create something new, like this attractive creative border. Now we could use adjustment layers to tweak the colors and the tones of this shot, but as part 3 is dedicated to adjustment layers, I'm going to invite you to come along and have a look at part 3, and you'll see ways to produce better colors and a wider range of tones. See you soon.